I have much to say on
like
Bishop. I have a problem.
I know you have a
with
lot
that.
to say about Bishop.
Is the bun on the top of my head straight?
Fairly so.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we have a couple special guests. We have Grace and we have Janelle, and they're gonna be helping me review the Panic TV show more than anything. I do have the book here that I read. I read it about 5 years ago. I looked back on my Goodreads, but when the TV show came out, I knew I wanted to do kind of a longer video reviewing all of it and doing a comparison as well, same as I did with The Woman in the Window. So I read it again and then I watched the TV show, and boy do I have a lot to say, so let's just get into it. A quick plot for this is that it's like a small town. It's a summer game which is called Panic. The whole point is to kind of do dares, and there's judges, and whoever is riskier gets further ahead in the game, and then at the end you win the pot, which is normally the pot. You win the money, which is normally like thousands of dollars, and the students at the high school pay into it every year, and then at the end of the year is kind of when the game begins. The main character is Heather. She wasn't planning on playing, but for a couple different reasons she ends up joining, and she gets various dares along the way. I'm not gonna say how she ended up playing, because in the TV show versus in the book it was different, but she ends up playing at some point, which I feel is fairly obvious, because what is the point of the main character not playing? Like I've been adding the main conflict, I will say in this, it's more just like not being sabotaged, because there's a lot of people that are out to get you or just want to get ahead. Again, people need this money for a variety of reasons, some to actually survive and some for school and that kind of thing. Also, you don't want to be caught by the police, because this year specifically, the police are more aware of the game and they're kind of focusing more and making sure that they stop any dangerous activities from occurring. They fail, but it's fine. So the genre category for this one is obviously like young adult, it's thriller. It's also romance. It's a lot more romance in the TV show than it is in the book, and we know me, I did not enjoy that particularly, but again, I'll get into that later. So some of the main characters are Heather, obviously. She's like the main character in my opinion. She grew up poor and she's definitely more of a mother to her little sister than her actual mother is. Then there's Natalie, who's Heather's best friend, and she's the one that was originally gonna play, and Heather was more resistant about Natalie even playing because it was so dangerous, and then Heather ends up having to join, but Natalie's not exactly happy about that. Dodge is yet another player in this game. In the book, he's actually the second narrator. He has a lot of different reasons for playing and a lot of secrets, but those don't really come out until later on. Specifically in the TV show, because he's not the narrator, you don't get to hear from his point of view, whereas in the book you find out maybe his first chapter, probably his second chapter, like the actual reason that he's playing. Bishop is another character. He's kind of just a side character. He isn't playing, but he's been Natalie and Heather's best friend since they were little. Something that I loved in this book is that it had very strong characters and large plot twists. It definitely shocked me at certain points, not as much as the TV show did, because I wasn't expecting it, because it's not an exact comparison to the book, but it was close enough that I still knew that I was experiencing the book. Something that I didn't like in the book specifically, I will say, because again, it's different in the TV show, is there was very predictable storylines or relationships that I was like, okay, obviously. But like I said, like a very small amount compared to everything that was shocking. So I rated this book 5 out of 5. I rated it 5 out of 5 5 years ago, and I rate it 5 out of 5 now. It's definitely a good summertime read, which is when I read it, just because I was getting ready to watch the TV show. I would have read it in the winter as well, but honestly, you can read it whenever. I just think it's a good story overall. And I found that it captured like the small town essence really well. Growing up in a small town, you kind of get what that's about, and there's a couple books that I can think of that try to do that and just don't do it as well as this one does. Similar books I can think of to this one is like The Hunger Games, with kids competing for something, for a prize in the end. Obviously, it's a lot less deadly than The Hunger Games, but still the same idea. And it's very similar to Nerve. I feel like it's a combination between Nerve and The Hunger Games. Okay, so if you're planning on watching the TV show or reading the book, I would honestly recommend both. The TV show was quite good and the book was very good. Obviously, read the book first. And I would love to hear your guys' thoughts, so let me know in the comments down below. And otherwise, I'm going to start spoiling things now, so click off if you're planning on that.
Spoilers.
So something about this book is that there's 2 judges every year and they're kept secret, obviously, so that they can't be blackmailed or threatened into letting somebody win over somebody else. Those two judges are the ones who make the challenges and also pick the winner in the end. In the book, the plot is that Heather joins because her boyfriend dumped her, and he's there that night when they're doing the initiation, is to jump off the cliff into the water, and that's how the book immediately begins. And she's there supporting Natalie, and then she sees this guy that dumped her with this new girl, and then she's like, he must think that I'm boring and I want to be brave, so I'm gonna jump. I much preferred her reason for doing it in the TV show because it was that she needed money for school. It didn't paint that great of a picture of her. That's the way that it started, with her being like, I'm gonna risk my life because I want this guy to realize that he shouldn't have dumped me. Like, that was just stupid. So she starts working with a woman named Anne on a farm, basically to earn more money, and she learns that Anne has 2 tigers on her property, like elderly tigers. I think they might have been from a circus, and she had rescued them. She has a lot of animals on her farm, but the tigers are definitely the strangest of them all. Dodge is quite desperate for Panic to continue. There's a couple times where you think that it might be over because the cops are too close to it. His sister had been paralyzed a couple years before in the final challenge, which is the joust. And that's where basically it's like playing chicken on a road and 2 cars are going at each other, and if you swerve out of the way, then you lose. So basically, there was a guy that had paralyzed Dodge's sister, and his little brother is playing this year, and so that's Dodge basically wants revenge for his sister. So about halfway through the book, maybe a little further, Heather finds out that her mom stole all of her money for school. Basically, she goes home and her mom's doing drugs, and then she goes to her room to pack things up, and she's like, oh, gotta get my money, and all the money's gone. So she takes her little sister and she takes the car, and they run away from home, and they live in the car for a little while, but then eventually they do end up actually staying at Anne's place once Anne realizes that they are homeless. Throughout this whole book, Bishop is like telling Natalie and Heather, like, don't play, it's too dangerous, you need to drop out. And then you find out he's actually a judge, which part of the reason for that is because he grew up super poor, and the judges get paid as well, obviously not as much as the final money, but they do get part of it. Once the cops discover Heather and her little sister living on the streets, that's kind of when they go to Anne's house, because Heather's only 17, and Anne shortly after that ends up leaving. She's going on a trip. The judges take great advantage of this and use the tigers as a individual challenge. It ends up being Nat's individual challenge, so she needs to stay in the pen with the tigers, but she leaves the pen too early because the tigers charge at her. So basically when she leaves to save her life, she gets disqualified, and then she ends up being out of the game. There is also a point, like I mentioned, where the relationships become obvious. So at the beginning of the book, Bishop and Heather were easily just friends, and then it's like throughout they discover they've been in love with each other all along, blah, 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 whatever. But my problem with that is, or one of the things is that Heather goes over to Bishop's basically to tell him how she feels, and there's a girl there named Layla. She thinks that Layla is Bishop's girlfriend, and then she gets all upset about everything, and Layla's actually just the other judge. So you find that out later, and that's why they've been hanging out so much. The next morning, Heather goes out and the tigers are gone because the padlock wasn't refastened the night before. There were so many people there was a lot of things going on. Natalie was upset because she got disqualified, and Heather forgot to check to see that it was repadlocked, which I feel like the judges should have done that, given the judges opened it in the first place. Like, you started this, you should padlock it. Anyways, both the tigers are gone. Shortly after that, one of them is found and shot, but the other one's still on the loose, so everybody's like, kind of keep an eye out for the tiger in this small town. So the 3 main characters that are left then for the joust are Heather, Ray, and Dodge, but you need only 2. Dodge and Ray kind of work together and find out who the judges are, and Dodge starts going to Bishop and trying to convince him, like, you know, you should really eliminate Heather because this is so dangerous. And Bishop's like, you're right, because I love her. So then Bishop just eliminates her, basically, so that Dodge and Ray can compete against each other because Dodge wants to kill him. Here's where things get a little bit confusing. Dodge puts a bomb in his car, like his own car, and his plan is that before the race, he's gonna say, well, how do I know that Ray hasn't like rigged his car so that he'll win? We should switch. And then basically the bomb, once you start driving fast enough, it'll heat up, that it'll explode, and Ray will then die, but in Dodge's car is kind of the idea. Natalie and Heather find out that Dodge is planning on killing Ray, but they don't necessarily know how he's gonna do it, which is unfortunate, which matters. But they kidnap Dodge and tie him up in Natalie's basement, and then Heather gets into Dodge's car to like pretend to be Dodge. So then obviously they didn't know how they were going to kill him, so they didn't know that there was a bomb in the car. Heather starts driving really fast, the engine catches fire, and Heather basically tuck and rolls, jumps out of the car. At the same time, a tiger appears in the middle of the road, the one that was missing, and she pats his head and basically wins for her bravery. So the end of the book is that she basically goes to college, dates Bishop, happily ever after, whatever. Although it never explains what happens to her and her little sister because they cannot live with their mom. The mom in the TV show, 5 times better than the mom in the book. The mom in the book is awful. Okay, I'm gonna quickly say some things about the TV show, and then we're gonna get over to Grace's perspective, and then we'll get to some of Janelle's. And it's all very good. Grace has read the book before, but a long time ago, so she doesn't remember anything about the book. And then Janelle never read the book, but is studying film, so that she knows kind of that things. And I think it's interesting to get perspectives from other people that didn't read the book, or at least not recently. The TV show is fairly similar overall, like I mentioned. They added a couple plot twists that probably weren't necessary, but I mean, it made it more interesting for me because it wasn't what I was expecting and I was still shocked. There was a whole second storyline that involved other kids in previous years that had been killed by the game, and the cops are kind of looking into that, and they also go a lot more into the cops' perspectives of what's happening, whereas in the book they really didn't. They were just like, oh, the cops might show up at some point. Also, I will admit that I didn't pay the best attention to the first couple episodes because the 3 of us were together and we were not really paying attention, because I thought throughout the whole thing that the 2 people that were killed in the TV show were twins, were like brother and sister, and then it was talking about how, spoiler alert, the girl was like pregnant and it was his baby, so obviously they were not twins, they were actually just dating. But it was like the sheriff's son was one of the guys that was killed. So like I mentioned, in the TV show, the reason she joined is because her mom stole her money, and it was actually right at the beginning, like maybe it would have been the first episode. She finds out that her mom stole all of her money to fix the car, that kind of thing, and then Heather takes the car because she's like, well, it has my parts in it because it's her money, blah, 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 whatever. Which again, I found was a much better way to start the book, movie, TV show. So again, like I mentioned, the relationship with her mom was extraordinarily different. I obviously didn't like the TV show mom. It was the same thing where she was just kind of a druggie and she was stealing her daughter's money, and she just wasn't the best mom overall, but you could see that she did have some empathy for all of it and like wish that she could be better herself. In the book, she just straight up doesn't want to have any daughters and thinks that they're a nuisance and treats them like trash. In the TV show, Heather walks in and finds them doing coke. That happens in the book as well, but then her mom protects her and tells her to like get out and leave because she's gonna let this guy beat her instead of her daughter. In the book, she's yelling at her daughter for throwing the coke all over the room, like that kind of thing. Getting down on the floor and like snorting it from the carpet. Anyways, let's get into it. Bishop. Bishop. So, if you look up, Janelle, we're gonna insert a picture of IMDb, the guy who plays Bishop. That is how he's actually supposed to look in the book. Like in the book, basically his IMDb picture, perfect. In the TV show, let's put that one right over here. In the TV show, he looks a little, as Grace says, fruity, and just wrong. Overall, they made him rich. They made him like well-dressed, button-up shirt. He's supposed to be like plaids, pajama pants, like flip-flops and socks. Like he's supposed to be doesn't take care of himself. And this guy is very much like, oh, let me gel my hair back, and just made it a lot less interesting than like, why did he need the money then? Why was he a judge? Like that part didn't make as much sense. The other thing is that Bishop and Heather are immediately in love with each other in the TV show, whereas in the book, it's like very much, oh, we've been in love with each other this whole time, which was a much better way to do it. In the TV show, it was very obvious that it was going to happen because it was the first scene that had them together. I was not happy with that. But then they also, I guess, wanted a relationship with Heather, but they didn't want it to be obvious and be Bishop. So they made Ray just 6 times the character that he was in the book. They made him much larger. He basically had very few lines in the book. Like he was very unimportant, and then in the TV show he's like one of the main characters. So then she ends up having a relationship with him, which I hated because he is such a D-bag. And he did that thing where he was like, oh yeah, but you know, my granddad used to beat me. And I'm like, that doesn't give you an excuse to be an asshole. Anyways, it's fine. I also had a problem with Dodge. He was supposed to kind of look like a young Johnny Depp. And as Grace said, he looked like 18 and 36 at the same time. Just wrong overall. Like in my head, he just looked like a little boy. Throughout the story, I got used to it, but like at first I genuinely was like, who's that? And we were sitting in my basement watching it, and he starts saying things, so I'm like, okay, so he's gonna be an important character, but literally, who is that? And then I was like, no. He was like, oh yeah, my name's Dodge, and I was like, your name is what now? Anyways, didn't enjoy that, but I mean, his character was accurate, so fine. In the show, the bishop was revealed very quickly as the judge. In the book, it's much more towards the end, and that's pretty much the biggest shock of the whole book. Is like, I mean, other than the tiger in the road, is when Bishop is revealed as the judge. But then in the show, it was like, I don't even know what episode, but it was very early on. One thing that they did fix in the TV show, and I'd never thought about it before, but there was a huge plot hole with Dodge, because in the book, he had lived there his whole life. And it's like, how did people not know that his sister got paralyzed years prior? But in the TV show, he had moved away and then he came back basically just to play, and his mom and his sister knew that he was playing and knew that he was kind of just doing it to get revenge. Whereas in the book, they have no idea and he's just kind of doing it all on his own. In the TV show, they made Natalie the second judge rather than Layla, however you want to pronounce her name. And they just made her as somebody that Dodge's dad was like the owner of their building and Dodge had been helping them out with rent or whatever. It was very strange. Natalie as the judge didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, probably just because I read the book and it was talking from her perspective a lot, but I feel like they just really threw that in. It was a good plot twist, I just didn't feel like it fit personally. In the book, Ray's brother actually did hit Dodge's sister and that's how she got paralyzed. In the TV show, that didn't happen because Ray's brother was actually in jail, so he couldn't have done it. So then you find out the sheriff was covering it up. The sheriff's like super bad guy, crooked cop, whatever. So Dodge basically refuses to play anymore once he finds out that Ray's brother actually didn't hurt his sister. So the sheriff is kind of like, fine, I'll just do it myself because he wants Ray dead. So then he starts driving Dodge's car. What?
I was gonna say he wants Dodge to win specifically because he's been betting on it because of the whole betting ring. I don't know if it's because he wants Ray dead. I think it's because he wants Dodge to win and Dodge won't play.
Yeah.
It could be also he wants Ray dead. I don't know. Maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah, I felt like it was more that I forgot about the betting ring in total, but he like literally beats Ray's brother to death. So I think that he just wants to kind of clear up everything because Ray's the only one that knows. Until Dodge finds out. Ray's the only one that knows that Ray's brother was in jail and didn't actually hurt Dodge's sister. But yeah, good point. So there was a whole like betting ring that happened throughout, so that was part of the reason that the sheriff wanted Dodge to win and play overall, is just because he was betting on Dodge to win and then basically Dodge refuses to play. So then he plays and kind of pretends to be Dodge and he's driving Dodge's car. Ray decides basically not to drive. He's like, the sheriff will just win, whatever. Technically, Dodge won, blah, blah, blah. But then Heather doesn't want the sheriff to get away with anything, so then she gets in Ray's truck and she's pretending to be Ray and the sheriff's pretending to be Dodge, and so there's a lot going on. And the same kind of thing happens where the sheriff, the bomb in the car goes off, kind of the engine catches on fire. He swerves, crashes the car, and I don't even want to get into it, but he dies with something that happens, he dies. And that's a whole other storyline. And then, again, Heather gets out and pets the tiger, because there was a tiger in the middle of the road, and again, that's how she wins. So my final thoughts on this was that it was a good adaptation. It was slightly different, but it definitely had the same vibes as the book. It ended much more on a cliffhanger, but there is not going to be a second season. They did cancel it, which I feel like is fine personally for me because the entire book was in the first season and I probably wouldn't like any other season as much, so. Didn't realize till the very end, but Lauren Oliver, who is the author of Panic, was actually the executive producer of the TV show, so I thought that was cool, and also probably part of the reason that it was so accurately depicted to the book. I highly recommend both of these. I left so much out specifically with the TV show because, like I said, they just included a lot of crap. But even the individual challenges themselves are really interesting to read and watch, so I would still recommend reading and watching this. The only thing I'm upset about the fact that they canceled it is just because I think that it's a very cool concept and it'd be interesting to see different seasons that were a little less specific, but other than that, yeah. So that was my review of Panic, the book and the TV show. I'm gonna switch with Grace and then she will tell you her thoughts on it as well.
Hi friends! If you've seen some of Larissa's other videos on her channel, you may recognize me, but if not, I'm Grace. I'm one of Larissa and Janelle's best friends, and I will be sharing my thoughts. Says the literal ink on my art. Anyway, I'm gonna be sharing some of my thoughts on the Panic TV series. As Larissa said, I read the book, but it was probably like 4 or 5 years ago, so I really remember nothing, and I thought maybe when I started watching the TV show, some of it would kind of come back to me like deja vu, but it really didn't, so I really remember nothing from the book, but all I remember is that I really, really loved it. It was such a good summer read, so as Larissa says, I totally recommend reading the book. I may reread it again sometime, but I don't really have enough book information stored in my brain to give a valid opinion on that, so I'm just going to be doing the TV show. So I kind of organized my thoughts a little bit differently from Larissa. I just organized it into what I didn't like and what I liked about the TV show, and I think it would make more sense to start with the things that I didn't like just to get the negativity out of the way, and then I'll get into the stuff that I did like. So my first thought was that everything was super, super, super condensed into the last few episodes of the show. All of the show, all 10 episodes were action-packed. There was never a point that was boring, but the last like 2 or 3 episodes were just insane. So much was happening. It was seeming like they were trying to resolve so many different plot lines, which is something else I'll get into in a second, but it made it really, really hard to follow. Especially I was packing while I was watching it, so it was really difficult for me to follow what was happening, and also because I didn't have the context of the book still in my brain anymore, it was really difficult to kind of keep it all together in my brain at the same time because there was just so much going on. So yeah, another thing that's kind of related to the last few episodes just being really condensed is that there were so many different plot lines going on. There were a lot in the book originally too, but then in the show they also add, like Larissa said, everything that's happening with like the cops and the sheriff being corrupt, and then like trying to stop the game and stuff. And even though individually I felt like a lot of the plot lines were really interesting and really cool, trying to put them all together just didn't fully work in my opinion. And I think if they had just picked a few core plot lines and really developed them a lot better, that would have been a more like cohesive viewing experience, I guess. Not that I thought any particular plot line was bad, it was just there were too many for them to be properly developed in like 10 episodes of a show. So yeah, some examples of just some things that I think just weren't well explained was like, why did Abby, the girl who died in the year previously in the game, why did she have to be pregnant? I don't understand why that was necessary. Why were there tigers? Obviously, like he comes in at the end and like Heather pets him and that kind of ends the game. But I was like, did it really need to be there? I don't know. Like,
one sec, I'm gonna jump in right over your head. Okay, hi, hello there. So, the tigers, that just reminded me. So I wanted to say that I was very concerned when we were doing the TV show that there wasn't gonna be tigers in it, because I was like, I think it'll be really hard to film. That's so, like, I feel like they could change it, but I was hoping that they would leave it in because it's so bizarre and strange. And they did leave it in, and I actually filmed like my reaction to, okay, I think they're gonna show tigers, but I'm really scared that there's gonna be no tigers, but here, and I filmed it like as I was watching it, so I'm gonna throw just a little clip. Good job, keep going.
Thank you. Some other things, there's this whole thing where Cortez, which is like the sheriff, the one whose son died, the one who ends up being like super corrupt, he and Dodge's mom are sleeping together, and I was just like, why? What was like, I don't understand why this is the thing that needs to happen. And then there's this character he's not important at all. He's one of like Ray's friends. At one point in like episode 3 or 4, he gets kidnapped by I think the judges, and then he ends up working with like the judges later on, but that is not explained at all how he's just kidnapped, and then a couple episodes later he just shows up and he's working for the game. And so yeah, there was a lot more that I could add, but those are just some examples of some plot lines that just either did not need to be there at all or just needed to be better developed. And I don't think that it's really anyone who worked on the TV show's fault that it was kind of confusing. It was just, there was so much happening that it was really difficult for me specifically, who doesn't remember the book at all to like kind of figure out what was going on. Okay, and then the last thing I have for things that like I didn't super like about the TV show were a lot of relationships between characters were introduced, and they would have like a couple scenes and then they were just completely thrown out, or like just there wasn't good closure about it at all. So example, like Bishop and Heather, I didn't like them together, but they had like a couple episodes, like they got together, they realized that they fell in love with each other, and then they just have a little fight and Heather gets mad at him, but then they make up, but they don't make up as a couple, they just go back to being friends, but there's no conversation where it's like, I think we're better as just friends. Like they just make out a few times and then Heather gets mad at him and then they're friends again, and it was just really hard to follow. And then another one was Dodge and Natalie. So in the TV show, Natalie becomes pretty good friends with Dodge's sister, the one who got paralyzed, and she and Dodge start working together in the game. Like they form an alliance, but Natalie also has an alliance with Heather, and she doesn't tell Heather about her alliance with Dodge, and it's a whole thing. But basically, yeah, Dodge and Natalie get together once, and then once again, Dodge gets mad at Natalie about something, I don't exactly remember what, and then they're friends at the end, and they have this whole conversation where like Dodge is about to go on a motorcycle and like ride around the country and like find himself or something, but there's no resolution. And once again, I feel like maybe if the show had been renewed for another season, that would be resolved a little bit better. But just once again, it was just a relationship that you think is going to be something that's like really important and like a deep and stuff, and then it's just kind of thrown out. So I think that also kind of goes with them just putting too much in there, because those were not, I don't really like Heather and Bishop, but I feel like maybe Dodge and Natalie could have been something that I could support if they developed it better, but they just didn't. And so it just left me feeling very confused and like unsatisfied, I guess. So now I'm gonna get into some stuff that I did like about the TV show, and I'm gonna start with the characters. So Larissa mentioned this about the book, and I agree in terms of the TV shows. All of the characters are super, super well developed. Even like the side characters, I feel like they all have their own distinct personalities, and none of them are all good or all bad. They're all morally gray. I'd say Heather the least, like she's pretty much all good, like saves her little sister, wins the game, is a tiger whisperer, like she kind of doesn't have that much bad going on about her. But everyone else has, they lie, or they have secrets, or they have times where they do something that they shouldn't. And I just think it really shows, like it's just more realistic that way than having like a good guy and a bad guy. And one of the examples of that is Ray. So I found when Larissa was filming her part of the video that we have very different opinions on Ray, because at the beginning I hated him too. He does just seem like a total douchebag. He's really,
I don't know, we'll just leave it, it's fine. I said D-bag, but then I said asshole. So like, just,
yeah. So at the beginning, Ray is just not a good guy. He's just being like a pig to Heather basically, and is just like flirting with her relentlessly when she clearly doesn't want it. And I'm very against that. Like I think that guy should just take no for an answer, but he doesn't. But I don't know, as the show progresses, it just shows, and yes, it's kind of the like classic, like it's a bad character at first, but then it gives the sob story about his childhood and you start to feel for him. But I don't know, it kind of worked on me this time, because by the end I really liked him. Like he was just a really well-rounded character. You could tell that, yeah, he has lots of things that he's done badly. He kind of has this like aloof, I don't give a whatever about anything, but then at the end you kind of see that that's just kind of a front, and he's actually a super loyal and caring guy. And so that's just one example of character being like really well developed, not all good or all bad. So yeah, I like Ray, but Larissa and I can fight about that later.
You had texted me after you read the book being like, oh my gosh, Heather and Bishop are so cute together. So that's the thing, I think if the TV show took some time with them, could have been cute. But then all of a sudden there was this thing going on with Ray, and I was like, excuse me?
Yeah, I don't mind a good friends to lovers, but I just kind of hate the whole thing about like every time there's a girl and a guy best friend in a book or a TV show or a movie ever, whatever, they always end up together. And I'm like, why can't a straight boy and a straight girl just be friends and like not have anything else happen? So I liked Ray and Heather
Why
better.
can't enemies just be enemies? Why can't a D-bag just be a D-bag? Why does he have to have gone through a traumatic childhood and then be a good guy in the end? So frustrating.
Because it's more fun that way. Okay, and maybe if I had read the book more recently too, I would be more pro Heather and Bishop. But it was just really awkward. Like the actors just And
They
all
had
the
no
actors were
chemistry.
good, but they had zero chemistry whatsoever. It was so awkward. Whereas Heather and Ray, the actors, yeah, they had a lot of chemistry.
They did have chemistry,
It
I
was
will
really
admit.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, even though Ray literally looked like 28, I was like, there's no way this man is a high school senior. But anyway, let's continue. Another thing that I really liked about the show is that although there were a lot of plot twists, I didn't see a lot of them coming. So even though there were like a lot of them and it kind of became like kind of oversaturated with plot twists at one point, a lot of them I didn't see coming. I was really surprised with. And I think when you watch a lot of shows, read a lot of books, it becomes less and less surprising. Certain plot twists, you can see them coming a lot quicker, but with these ones, a lot of them I didn't see coming, and that also was helped by the fact that I don't remember the book. So I just thought it made it a more interesting viewing experience. Another thing that I like that Larissa also mentioned is that the author of the book was the creator and the writer of the TV show and like the executive producer, everything. And I think that's awesome because a lot of time when you read a book and then watch the screen adaptation, you just kind of see how they've taken this author's world, this author's story, and just totally convoluted it and just made it this whole other thing that you can't imagine the author supporting. But I think that the fact that Lauren Oliver was so incredibly involved in the making of the TV show just really adds integrity to it, and just kind of the fact that you know that the author is behind this adaptation just made me like it more. Another thing that I liked is that there were things that were added to the show that weren't included in the book, which if I had read the book I would have liked even more because it would make a more interesting experience. But I also just think there's no point in having like a play-by-play replay kind of a book on the screen. I used to not think that. I used to think that every book adaptation had to be like word for word the exact same, but then I realized you wouldn't get anything new out of that. And so I think that when you have a screen adaptation and you recognize that there are different things you can do on the screen that you maybe didn't do in the book, and to just make it more interesting, I feel like taking advantage of those opportunities is a really cool thing to do. And the last thing is kind of like, I don't know, a really basic thing to say, but I just really liked the main plot line. I thought it was this dystopian thing that's been done over and over again the past like 15-20 years, kind of ever since Hunger Games, and went from there. This whole, not dystopian, but you know what I mean, these like kids involved in a game, and it's this thriller and there's all this stuff happening, and a lot of it is just not interesting anymore, but they kept this kind of core like creepy thriller vibe while still being something completely new. The whole idea of the game that all the kids have to pay into and like the cops are investigating it, I think that that's really cool. And the whole like main storyline, it never got boring. There was no point in the entire show where I was like, can we just get to the next scene? Can we get more action? And so that was something that I really appreciated. And the last thing I had was just like, it wasn't something that was good or bad. It was just a thought that I had, and I kind of already mentioned it before, but Heather has these two relationships, the one with Bishop and the one with Ray throughout the show, and I just wanted to give my personal opinion that I liked Heather and Ray way better. It's way less predictable, and it's cool. They kind of come from the same place. Both of them, they understand like the family issues, which Bishop really doesn't seem to have, and he grew up rich, which once again doesn't happen in the book, so maybe the relationship would have made more sense in the book. But I just really like that they could relate to each other in that way. They both have like family issues, like with Ray's brother and Heather's mom, and trying to take care of her sister, and just that, yeah, I just think they understand each other a bit more, and they have like way more chemistry, and it just really shows like Ray's character development throughout the show, and how like he's kind of letting this whole like bad boy facade kind of fall because he cares about Heather so much. And so yeah, that was just my opinion on that. Whereas Heather and Bishop, I don't know, I really didn't like it at all. It's just, it seemed really awkward. It seemed super forced, and I don't think that was the fault of the actors. I think all of the actors really in the show did a really good job with what they had, but like, yeah, I just didn't like it at all. So yeah, those are all my thoughts on the Panic TV show. Overall, I really enjoyed it. Everything has one or two things that I would change, you know, nothing's perfect, but I thought overall it was really fun to watch. It was something new, and it had been long enough since I read the book that there were things that surprised me, and things that I found interesting. And yeah, I would totally recommend watching the show. So yeah, now I'm going to pass it on over to Janelle, our film major, so she's gonna kind of give the more cinematography, film perspective of the TV show.
This is awkward.
I know.
Hello.
Yeah, I enjoy.
I'm Janelle. You probably know me. I am usually behind the scenes, so. Anyways, I'm a film major. This is why I'm behind the camera all the time. Okay. My thoughts are very scrambled, so there is no order to this at all, so enjoy. Anyways, I mostly agree with everything that was already said, so I just won't say everything. The film perspective is most of my thoughts anyways. I thought the casting was really good, especially with Heather and her mom. They looked alike, very believable, and her sister. I don't know, I just saw that and I was like, that's good casting. I thought it was very well told with the little stories in the beginning and the end, they finish it off. I can't think of an example, but
The rock girl or something?
yeah,
The what?
There's a girl that's dirt.
yeah, that one.
Right.
Yeah, and the episode opens with a little story and then it finishes with that same story, and I was like, that's cool. I thought the cinematography was really good for a TV show, especially. I don't know if it's just because it was like a 10 episode thing, a special, better than a normal TV show, I would say. It kind of just felt like a long movie, which is what I think book. It's my cat in the litter box.
It sounded like somebody upstairs using saran wrap. I was like, what's happening?
I feel like it should have gotten way more attention than I thought it did. I barely saw anything. I saw the trailer circling around when it first came out, but I've never seen anyone actually talk about it. But I feel like it's really good, and I'm confused why I haven't seen anything. I don't know. I also really like the soundtrack. I thought it was perfect. I would look up all those songs on Spotify. It really fit the vibe of what they were going for, I think. Bishop, it's been said already, but he's a little fruity, and I can say that as a person of fruit myself. I don't know what they were thinking with that.
I feel like that might have been part of the reason it felt so forced.
Yeah.
Because he was straight up not straight.
I really wanted there to be a plot line where he kissed Heather and was just you know what? I like boys.
Yeah.
Oh my god, Bishop and Dodge. Shit. Or that scene where Bishop and Ray were fighting. There's some tension.
Yeah, because they both love him.
Or they both leave Heather for each other.
Tea.
The adult part of the show was just, I don't understand. It felt very unnecessary. I think the ending with the sheriff and his son was interesting, but everything else was just kind of pointless to me.
Okay, I didn't even understand that. Did he shoot his son? Did the sheriff switch the gun so that his son would shoot himself, or did the son actually switch the guns?
The son killed himself, I think.
That's what I thought, but then they said something about the sheriff switched the guns, and I was like, what?
See, here's the thing. There was too much happening.
No, I straight up feel like the sheriff killed his own son. I was so confused. Oh, and then I thought that Dodge's mom and the sheriff's wife looked so much alike. So when he was sleeping with Dodge's mom, I was like, isn't that his wife? I was like, why do we have to see this? But yeah, then it was actually different people.
See, I'm realizing now I missed a lot. When did that? I was also packing while watching it too, so
Yeah.
I don't know. And I never read the book. Yeah, the rest of my thoughts are just on the ending. It was not very satisfying. I don't enjoy it. I think they just should have left off when they were on the picnic blanket or something, whatever.
You didn't like the cliffhanger. That's what you mean? Because we talked about that.
Yeah. No, yeah. It just didn't make sense. And there's not a second book. I don't know, they might have just expected it to do well and then it didn't, so now there's no season 2, so I'm kind of dumb on their part, but okay.
I do know that actually happened because they released 3 shows, but basically I feel like what Netflix does is they release a show, and if people like it, they do another season. But what Amazon did is they released 2 shows, and it was Panic did well, but this one did even better, so then they focused all their energy into the other TV show, which makes me sad. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's the reason why there was like a cliffhanger there.
They should have just did like Marvel movies and just like the end credits.
end
Just
credits.
show that, and that's not that important, but whatever. Yeah, it was very fast paced, which was already said. I don't know. Too much going on. There's too many storylines. The characters are just like good acting, but there was not much chemistry between everyone. Like Bishop and like their like 3-person friend group, their little trio. I'm like, I kind of don't believe that they've been friends for so long. But yeah, they should have given it more breathing time or made it longer. I don't know. It's very like, yeah, like the first half of it was like well paced, and it's like the end they were like, okay, we gotta wrap everything. Yeah, and my last comment I put is, why is Dodge like that? That is all.
I deeply agree.
Yeah. That is my thoughts. I will go back to Larissa.
I'm gonna give you your headset back. That was our trio review of Panic, the book, and the TV show for me and the TV show for the rest of them. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. If you did, make sure to comment, like, and subscribe. Let me know down below if you watched the TV show and if you have any of these similar thoughts. The TV show is available on Amazon in case you're looking for it, or you can always DM me on the Instagram page, which is stories_books. All that will be linked down below. I always say that, but then I don't do it. Janelle does it. She's great. And I think that that's all for this review. Again, this is Panic by Lauren Oliver, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys. Father is calling me. Does he need something in particular? Yeah, I'm just not gonna answer. It's 2:13. Sorry. Oh, God. Okay. Oh, no. Grace ruined everything. Just leave it. Just leave it. It's fine. We can't do anything on our own.
I just like feel like I am moving. In case you did not.
Okay, fine. Cool.